Hello everybody, D2 here. Welcome back to the channel. This is a follow-up video for strategies I use for doing rejection of subframes. Those strategies differ depending on how big the data set is and how many sessions I have, or whether or not I'm shooting RGB stars on narrowband, depending on if I'm in a dark site or not. So let's get into it. My previous video on cracking the code on Subframe Selector had to do with setting your scale, and for this data set I'm using my FLT 132 and 2600 Pro, which requires a 0.85 setting, and I'll go ahead and set the gain, even though that won't matter for this. That's all the time I'll need to see that. I'm going to start with a single session small data set scenario. So let's add in from 199 data set. I have my filters are _H, which is for my hydrogen filter. So that's how I can filter out all the others in this search, because they're all captured in the same folder, and add those. So in this case, there's 26 subs. I'm going to go ahead and measure that. You can hit F6 to measure as a shortcut. So when you first come in, I like to use full width half maximum, and you can see the scale here set up properly, and stars. If you look at this graph, blue line is full width half maximum, lower is better. The dashed line is stars, higher is better. So theoretically, our worst sub is the high full width half maximum with low stars. So in this case, maybe you're just getting started and you don't know what's a good full width half maximum for your combination of equipment, and is this really a bad one? Should you get rid of any of these? One of the things you can do is do some comparisons. So index 26 is supposedly the worst sub. Over here, highest number of stars and lowest full width half maximum is the best sub. So 14 and 26. So let's go to 14 as the best sub and click over here. Let's minimize this. If you double click the bar, it'll minimize that. You can pull this over. This is supposedly the best sub. And then let's go to 26 and open that. This is the worst sub. And let's move this out of the way. For this one, stretch it, put them over top of each other. Control page down on Windows, you can compare them. Now there are two different orientations, so that does a little bit to the numbers, and I can't easily overlap them. But what I'm going to do is just look at this little combination of stars right here, these two and these two down here, and you don't have to be that close in. I think that something like this is pretty good. So if I have that set for the first one, I'm going to find the same area down here. Just to see. Okay, so I can tell these two stars right here and these right here. This is the worst one. So these stars are hardly distinguishable clearly. And these, you can see this not really very round on the big star. And if I change it, this image, these are really very well rounded, and these are nice and bright, sharp, round little stars on this, the two down here. So that tells me, okay, I don't want these. The background stars are faded in this one versus the other one. So I'm not really keen on keeping over this, I'll say over 4. You could spot check down through here and keep just looking at them. Maybe I look at index number 9. Now that I looked at the other ones, I don't even really have to have them up and to compare them. After a while, you just get so you can look at it and say, okay, if I look at this one, okay, this one, it's got a little bit of elongation in here. And you can see those two stars. I kind of don't like that either. So, that's telling me maybe I go a little bit lower on that particular one. And you can see the stars were low on that. That's telling you trouble it was having with that particular sub. So maybe our cutoff is 3.3. So I'm going to say I want everything with full width half maxed over here in approval is less than 3.3. Now you could also put in, for safety, say in this case we wanted all of the subs that were greater than 2,000 stars. So you put double ampersand, stars are greater than 2,000. And notice when I'm on this box, this pops up and it gives you all the keywords you can use to run calculations against. That's how I knew the stars versus full width half maximum. I mean, it's the same as the labels here. I'm gonna hit this again. It didn't add anything to it because all the ones I rejected were already over 2,000. That's a cutoff. Now I'm just gonna spot check one more. Go down here to index 23. This is like when I'm first starting to learn how to grade these. 23, I'm gonna just stretch it. I'm gonna go look at that same area. Here's the stars, they look good. There's a separation. These are not bad. AI will clean that up fairly well. They're nice and bright. We can see the stars fairly decently in the background. I'm okay with this, so I'm gonna keep that. So I am comfortable, my cutoff of 3.3 primarily. And you can get some weird stuff here. So you could get I'll try to show this in another video, or maybe in this video, we'll see if it shows up. You could have a high star count with a low full width half maximum, and generally what you'll see is the star count will spike. It might be almost double, and especially on like RGB session where maybe there aren't as many stars in the capture, and you had like 600 stars in one, but all of a sudden you got like 1,100 stars in one or two subframes. You should look at those, because usually what happens is the sub shifted partway through the capture and it has shifted image, so you got two sets of the star field, but it just happened to be clear enough that the full width half maximum was happy and the star count went high. And in that case, the grading algorithm, which is why I don't like to use weighting systems based off of all these crazy calculations, would say that that has a very high star count, good, and it has a very low full width half maximum, good, and it would give it a high weight and make the image worse. So I don't like to do that. I like to use this method and spot check anything that looks out of the ordinary. And like in this case, we already looked at this sub, it was good. But say, I wanted to look at a few more just to get comfortable with it. You could just open these up and learn from it. So I already know below 3.5 is typically on this filter, hydrogen. That's typically going to be a good sub. The stars are more important if you don't shoot RGB, but I say it's still important even for faint nebula capture to pay attention and have the cutoff. You want those edges to be sharper on your nebula versus fuzzy, and especially on hydrogen, that's your detail, just like it would be your luminance on an LRGB photo. So once you get this the way you want it, switch this to output. Set this folder in the previous video, the file chaos video I made. We talked about a file structure in a work in process with your targets you're working on. Inside there, you got all of your shoots you've done, all the raw images. I blank and remove from these, and then I make a master folder for a project. So this is the FLT 132-2600 project, of which I'm going to include all 4 sessions. But in this case, we're talking about a single session. So imagine we only had a September 9th session. Then I would make the master for that. And then inside that, I make an approval folder. I usually make everything lowercase in here, easier to type. And then I make a folder for each filter. So I would set this folder to the hydrogen filter. You always scroll over and double check it's on hydrogen. Get it on output, hit F6 or the big circle, and it will copy the 22 approved subs frames over to that folder. Then you rinse and repeat. So you do this for every filter and put it into its individual folder. Now, some people like to blend them all into one folder, one approved folder. So hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur, all the filters in the same folder. That's okay too. I like to separate them because I run statistics against my different filters. And for me, it's just easier to have them in the individual folders. But from the WBP perspective, it won't care about that at all. So pick your poison on file management. I've given you my opinion. It works well for me. So I'm going to now switch gears and show how I handle a multi-session. So let's imagine the 4-night shoot that I showed in my file structure. I'm going to move this to measure. I'll leave this at hydrogen. Imagine that approved folder's empty. I empty it out when I go to do a new project, or make a new folder if you want. Pull in all of the original sessions and new sessions. So let's do that real quick. Go in here, got these top 4 folders. Go to the first one, grab all the hydrogen, add files, go to the next session, grab all the hydrogen from here, All right, so I fast forwarded. I had loaded all the hydrogen for every session. You see the dates, 23, 24. And now I have quite a few more subs. So that previous single session, say there were only, 9 subs, for instance. I might want to keep this index, number 9 one, and maybe this bottom one, and only cut 2 subs out because I just don't have a lot of signal to work with in the first place. But on a multi-session, you have quite a bit more to work with. So let's hit measure on this. It applied the rule I had set. Notice those 3 were originally cut out. If you just happen to remember it from before, you're like, oh yeah, I don't want those subs. The entire set is pretty good, 3.2. So this looks fairly decent. So you could look at some additional ones just to get an idea of what's going on. Like, let's compare the best sub, number 31, to the worst sub right next to it, 32. Best sub, 31. And worst sub, 32. Stretch. And then, wow, look at that. There's why that got rejected. Clouds. So in blink, it got by me in blink because I just saw the stars and I knew it was a faint target, right? So I was just flying through it. And the stars look sharp. Maybe I was zoomed in like this when I was doing the secondary blinking and I couldn't tell that there was clouds, so it got by me. But here, even if it made it past a weighting scheme, not going to get past you on the method I just used because there's just 2 measurements. There's not a whole bunch of variables to get fooled. That's just confirming what it's doing looks right. So you would go ahead and hit output on right target, hit the F6. I'm not going to do that because I've already done that for this set. And then clear, load up all of the next filter for all the sessions, change your filter over beforehand. Before you even load them, I would say change this to measure so you don't dump them all in the same folder. Run it, use this as your default from your first filter. You could tweak it if you see that it's like a little bit cutting out too many subs. Maybe for some reason the scale changes for one filter a lot more, then you might need to change this number a little bit. But just get comfortable testing some subs until you have a good feel for where they play out in quality. So that's my strategy for handling single and multi-session subframe selector approval. If you like this video, please watch some of my other ones. That'll help me grow the channel. Subscription would be greatly appreciated. With that, clear skies. Thanks for watching. Take care.